G'day everyone, my name is Hoy. Let me show you how to make this cool glow effect in Photoshop. Now the beauty of this technique is that I'm not going to paint on the glow. It's all to do with layer styles. And what that means is that it's fully editable. So let me just demonstrate that to you and add to this text. And look at that. Now, if you're not impressed, I can also use the same technique and apply it to shapes. So if I create a new layer here, and then go to my rectangle tool, I can create this rectangle, and there you go. But are you still not impressed? With a little bit of creativity, we can also apply it to an image, like this model here. Now, this tutorial isn't about showing you how to replicate this image, it's about how to create the glow. But if you want me to walk through how I created this image, just simply leave me a comment. Okay, so the first thing that we need to do is create a blank canvas. So let's go to File, New, and the size of the canvas doesn't really matter. I'm just going to use the one that I've used before, which is the 1920 pixels by the 1080. I've got my resolution at 72. It doesn't really matter what it is, but the most important thing is that your background contents is set to black, because that's how you can exaggerate the glow. We can't see the glow on a white background. So let's press Create. And let's create a new layer so we can put our text on it. So T on the keyboard and then press once on the canvas. I'm going to type in glow. And at the moment, I can't see my glow because I've got my text color as black. So let's press Command or Control A to select all our text. Let's click on this palette here and then just set our text color to white and press OK. I'm just going to press Escape to accept that. And this is obviously a little bit too small. So let's resize that by pressing Command or Control T. And let's just resize it. Press Shift and then click on this corner. Shift is to resize it proportionally, so something like this. And then I'm just going to place it around about the center and then press Return on the keyboard to accept that. Now, as I mentioned in the intro, this isn't about painting the glow effect. It's about using layer style. So to bring up our layer style menu, let's go to our layer and just double click on the side of the layer. Just be careful not to double click on the word, otherwise you'll rename the layer. So double click on the side of it and that will bring up our layer styles. Now the first thing that we're going to do is create a color overlay. So just press on the name color overlay. Be careful not to press on the checkbox here, because if you just click on this checkbox here, it will just apply whatever settings you have already. You can't change it. So I don't want that, so I'm just going to uncheck that and just make sure that you click on the name of it, and that will bring up the options here. We're going to leave the blend mode as normal, and we're going to change the color by clicking on this. And I've already got a color in mind, which is the color that you saw on the intro. The color, if you want to follow along, is FF7E00. Now, if you want a different color, if you want a different glow, then that's fine. All you do is just click and drag to whatever color that you want here. I'm fine with this, so I'm just going to press OK. Now the next thing that we're going to do is create an inner glow. So again, click on the word inner glow, not the check mark. Now the blend mode, we're going to change screen to normal. Let's crank up the opacity all the way up to 100. Let's leave this option to solid color instead of this gradient here. Our technique is softer and our source will be center, because what we want to do is have the glow emanate from the center. If you have it selected as edge, obviously the glow will come from the edge, and then depending on these settings, your choke and size, it will apply it differently. So we want it to be in the center. The choke, we're going to leave it at 0, and basically what the choke is basically the size of the effect that you want. And the size, I'm just going to play around with it, something like 51. And what we're going to do, you can see that the transition is very gradual. So what we're going to do is change the contour of that to make it a little bit more abrupt. Now the default is this linear one here, but we don't want that. So let's click on this down arrow and let's select this half round effect. And you can see that the effect is a lot more abrupt. So this is before and this is after. Now I'm just going to take a 30-second detour to explain what contour is in layer styles, because when I was learning about Photoshop and I saw this, I just didn't really understand what all this is about. And if you followed my channel for a little bit of time, you'll know that I'm all about not just teaching you how to click buttons, but to understand the why behind it. So I'm just going to go to Illustrator and just going to bring up this explainer file. So this is the linear option here, and if I extrude it or make it into a 3D image, I have this effect here. So this is sort of the side profile here, and this is the extrusion. And this point, the reason why I made it in color is to simulate the light effect. So you can see that if the light source is somewhere around here, the light effect will be all uniform on this edge here. If I go to this rounded corner here, you can see that the effect, the lighting effect, is not uniform, right? So at the bottom it will be a little bit darker, and at the top it will be a little bit brighter, assuming that the light source is also here. And if I do another one just to cement our knowledge in, so this is the ellipse, and you can see that assuming that the light source is here, the light source is bouncing on the top of this curve here, and then everything else is in shadow. So essentially what the contour is saying is this is basically the profile, and depending on what profile you choose, it will shape how the light reflects off it. Okay, so going back to this, what we need to do next is apply an outer glow. So let's click on the name outer glow again, and let's change our blend mode from screen to normal. Let's crank up our opacity, and let's change the color from white to red. Now I've already got a color in mind, which is C91010, and I'm fine with that, so I'm going to press OK, and we'll leave the technique as softer. The other option is precise, and you can imagine what it does. It makes the glow a little bit harder edge instead of blurrier edge. Now what the spread is basically the boundaries of your effect. So if I just crank that up and then increase the size, you can see that it's increasing the size of the effect. So I'm going to leave it at 0, but I'm going to crank this to about maybe 100. And what the difference between the size and the spread is that the size is the size of the blur of your inner glow, whereas this effect is actually the effect itself. So if I reduce the size, it's just got the hard edge to it, right? So I don't want that, I just want a blurry edge, so something like this. Maybe we'll dial it down even more actually, so something like this looks good to me. I'm just going to press OK. Now if I want to edit my text, I can double click on my layer and then go back to it and then type in glowing. So obviously this is off the canvas, but you get the idea. So I'm just going to delete that. Now I did mention in the beginning that I can also apply it to shape. So I'm just going to escape out of that and create a new layer. I'm just going to turn this off for this time being. I'm going to my rectangle tool here, and I'm just going to create a rectangle by clicking and dragging, and you'll notice that there's going to be a problem, so which is intentional. So I'm just going to click and drag, and because I've got my fill as black and my stroke as nothing, it just blends in with the background. So then you say, whoa, hoy, where is the glow effect? Hang on. So no problem. Now obviously we don't want to keep having to go back into our layer styles and then apply all the layer style options, right? So the beauty of this is that I've already got this effect on my text layer, so I'm just going to duplicate this for this shape layer here. So I'm on a Mac, so I'm just going to press Option. If you're on a PC, it's Alt, and then click and drag on this word effects, and then move it to the shape layer and then just drop it like this. So let me just replicate that with another rectangle, and you'll see the issue is going to replicate itself. See, you can see that it doesn't automatically apply the effect to new shapes. So if you want the glow effect to apply to every shape that you create, what you need to do is create a group. So what I'm going to do is make sure that I've got the rectangle 2 layer selected, press shift on my keyboard and click on rectangle 1 layer, and then on my keyboard command or control G to make a folder, and I'm just going to expand that. So instead of this effect applying to this layer only, I want this effect to apply to the whole group. So I'm going to click and drag on the effect. Now I don't want to press Option or Alt on the keyboard because I'm not duplicating the effect. I just want to move the effect. So click and drag it all the way up to the group level, and then now you see that whatever's in the group, which is these two rectangles here, will have this glow effect applied. So if I create another shape, this time let's make it an ellipse. If I just click and drag to make a shape, you can see this glow effect. Wow, it's applied it to whatever shape that I've created. Now I mentioned in the intro, this effect might look simple, but with a bit of creativity, we can also apply it to an image like this model here. So this model here, what I've started off with, if I just turn this off, was this model here. The texture that I used was actually from this camera here. I just wanted this background texture. Obviously, I didn't want the camera tripod, so I used generative fill to remove all that and expand the canvas, and then masked out the model, and then applied the same effect to come up with this. Now there's a few more steps to create this image because we need the background to glow as well, and then the reflection on his clothes, but that's not the focus of this tutorial. If you want me to go through how I recreated this image, just leave me a comment. Now if you liked this video or learned something new, make sure that you like, subscribe, or hit the bell icon so you can get notified for when my next video is out.